All right, we are live.
Happy Wholesale Thursday this week.
Thursday.
Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, but
How many years we've been saying Wholesale Wednesday for?
too long time. I remember you said it first, and I just started I started laughing. I just added to the list of sayings,
Ridiculous sayings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it started like if you're watching this back on YouTube or whatever it is, afterwards, or you're just catching this right at the beginning. The reason Wholesale Wednesday started was because Wednesday was like the long day during like initial calls. And so Wednesday would be, you were starting early in the morning and you were going till late. And so that was like all day work type of deal. So that was Wholesale Wednesday because it's also in the middle of the week and suppliers and brands are usually in the office. So
Yeah.
The origin story.
12 to 15 hour work day, smack in the middle of the week.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we're waiting for some people to join in. This will be sourcing and outreach strategies. As always, and if you guys are watching on YouTube, just hit the like button to help out the videos. So we could just, jump right into Smart Scout here. Pull it up on my screen.
Like over the weeks of us doing this, like we've gotten quite a comprehensive list at this point where it's like if you're gonna reach out to brands, I mean, you do this enough, you build up some serious volume with the amount of companies.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you're good.
And also, I just want to say, if anybody's watching and you guys really want an in-depth video tutorial on how we source suppliers and brands specifically, check out the most recent post on YouTube. Super comprehensive video, storefront stalking and reverse sourcing. That's how we've scaled to 7 figures. These lives, we obviously cover those things, but there's, things that we miss on the lives. So that video is very comprehensive and it has like different nuggets throughout the video so that you guys can really see what our thought process is when we are contacting these companies and adding them to the list.
And that video is an hour long, right?
I think it's a little bit under an hour. It's like 40 minutes or so.
So a lot of information in that, even more than, a stream. And that's all dedicated. And, this we're kind of just, we're doing it live, literally. So.
And it's all about sourcing, right? I mean, yes, outreach is very important, but we always say if you're not contacting the right kinds of companies, you're not going to be landing deals. It's the initial, it's step one in the whole process, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you're not starting with a good source, it doesn't matter. You can close the account, but it's going to be an account that, it doesn't really matter. So, or, it's an account, if you're sourcing the wrong stuff, that they're, never going to let you in the door to begin with because it's a big brand or a distributor or something like that. Also, guys, if you have any sort of comments or questions or anything, as always, feel free to drop them into any of the chats on any of the platforms. And if there's something that we didn't get to or you want answered, you can always DM us or send put a comment on the video afterwards. These will be saved on Twitter and on YouTube. So we're happy to answer anything you guys have.
Yeah. So criteria, what do you think about reducing the monthly revenue? Like if you're just a beginner, maybe we should try putting a lower monthly revenue on there.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe you have less capital. Maybe, you're not getting that crazy $250,000 a month volume account yet. So, I mean, even if we did this to maybe 100,000.
You're going to say 100. I was going to say even like 50, like real.
Yeah, we could do that.
Because that's what's great about Smart Scout and the sense of when you're looking in your storefront stalking, you can't really tell overall volume of the brand. I mean, you can if you look through all the listings, but this kind of puts everything in one comprehensive tool. So you're able to really just, get real granular with it. And, 50 doesn't work, go up to 75. It's, a click of a button, which is really nice. This is category agnostic too.
And even when you set that revenue range, you're still going to get big brands, right? Like, Quiz Pro.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm seeing a couple here, but like you're still going to get big brands because the way Scout's database sorts it is, it's also broken down by the product too. Like, so a product within a brand could be doing 50K a month revenue. So, these aren't hard and steadfast numbers, but at the end of the day, by shrinking your target revenue range, you are going to be shrinking the size of the sales volume and the capital demands, and possibly the ability to get the account too.
Yeah, it could be shrinking the amount of SKUs as well. I mean, you could have it where that entire revenue is made up by one SKU. So that's also another
Mhm.
way that it could be structured.
Because for me, I'm always looking at the average number of sellers, because that gives me like a gauge on kind of what the competition is on Amazon. Is there something in here, like as you're scrolling, that you're looking for?
I'm generally looking for brand score. So, I mean, brand score for me overall just is what their overall presence looks like based on a number of factors that Smart Scout, accounts for. So I'm looking at it based on that. Like I'm looking at that 5.6, that 3.9, that 5.6. And for our case, the worse the brand is presented and represented, the better it might be for us. So that's one of the key factors I'm looking at, as well as monthly units sold, monthly revenue. I don't know, monthly units sold kind of gets me excited because I can kind of one to one how many ASINs we're sending in, how many we're selling type of deal, even more so than monthly revenue. That's just me though, but it's all important data points, I think.
Yeah, and with the brand score, do you want to just summarize what that is if people don't know what the brand score is?
Yeah, so the brand score on Smart Scout is basically the way it's how when we would go into a listing and we'll say, hey, does it have a brand store? Does it have, a plus content, enhanced brand content? Does it have good images? How's it looking? Is the brand name correct? Is it cohesive? All these things that we would take a look at manually and determine, is this a good listing? Is this brand on top of their Amazon presence? Smart Scout basically compiles that into one singular score out of 10, which is the brand score. So it's basically a way of showing what Amazon presence looks like in just a real quick snapshot, which being brand direct is the type of brands we want to target. So that's why it's important to me.
Right. And at the end of the day, that is brand direct wholesale, right? Because buying from distributors, it's just a volume game. You're buying and selling product. There's no vested interest really on either side in the brand. But the reason why brands are so protective of what they have, on Amazon is because they've built equity around their brand. And unfortunately, over the years, Amazon is a platform for a lot of brands that has polluted the equity of that brand. So, depending on what time you come into the picture, right, with a brand, or what time you're pitching them, it could be the right time, in that you could offer strategic solutions to problems that they've had over the history. And you have to retrain your thinking patterns when you're reaching out to brands, because you're going into this guilty by association, right? You are selling on Amazon, and we're not necessarily hiding that. We're not putting it right out in the open in the beginning, but you are selling on Amazon. And because of that, you're guilty by association. So it becomes about building the relationship and differentiating yourself from the thousands of others that are reaching out to them, and offering them solutions that overcome the challenges that they face, right? That's at the end of the day, if we had a definition of brand direct wholesale, that's what it is, because it's very different from contacting a distributor. So we'll go off your brand score here, and like you were saying, maybe like a 5 or a 6 you were looking at, or even a 3 point.
I mean, there's a clear difference. I mean, I just want to show the difference between the two in general. Like, let's take a look at that 9.1 there. That's Spot LLC, Spot X right there. So, I mean, click on the listing on that first one there. I mean, we'll take a look at that. And again, we're going based on the brand score. Smart Scout is rating it as a brand score of a 9.1. And so we've got pictures that are, lifestyle. We've got the store, as we can see. We've got, I'm assuming we have A+ content. And the brand directly is, selling the product. So that's a 9.1. And I would say that is spot on. That is a 9.1. And then if we go to another, Smart Scout brand score, and we'll take a look at a low score, and we'll just show the comparison and the difference between the two.
Maybe like this 4.7. You got Amazon on the listing.
Let's do another one. Let's do that 3.6 right there. Yep. So, and then we're just going to show the differences between. Oh, that's it's more like a 0 then.
There's a 3.7. So
3.7. So looking into.
This is a book. Let's pick another one.
I've got some stories about some books
Here's one.
we sold back in the day. I used to sell bulk books way back when.
This listing looks pretty optimized. So that brand score is, it's a culmination, right? So you know what I mean? And I think that's where you were going with this, is that it's a culmination of different things. So like when people they're looking for data points, right? And you're not always going to get exact data points. It's about taking things and, assessing it on a holistic level.
Well, it just goes to show you like checks and balances of this. Like this, I mean, this said, what was the brand score on this?
3.6.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes back to the point of like, know what you're talking about, I mean, this is not a 3.6.
Well, here's the thing about this, though. It might be factoring in that 3.6 because this is brand new, right? It's a brand new listing.
Sure.
So it doesn't have a ton of sales traction or data behind it or product reviews, and that is part of the brand score, right? So it's the listing and everything you've said, but it's also, sales volume and reviews and things like that. So. Yeah, I mean, that's like Brandon said, what we're looking at is we're looking for that discrepancy between is the listing moving at a good volume and what is the health of the listing, right? Is it optimized? Is it not optimized? So this is one I think we would both agree that we wouldn't reach out to, mostly because the brand is on. And I do want to answer one question that a lot of people have, which is, we will reach out to a brand if the brand is on it and other resellers are also on it. But if the brand is the only one on it, then we won't reach out to them.
Exactly. We had a brand today that I reached out to, and they were saying how they're a seller and, they didn't want to dilute the market and all of that, but they were a FBM seller that received 0% of the buy box over the last 90 days. So just because the brand's on there doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a case by case basis. And you need to really just, again, it's like we're given all these data points, especially, I mean, Brad and I have been going and looking at the SKU economics over the past couple of days for our inventory. And it's just another example of Amazon provides you with every single data point that you could possibly need in order to make a decision. You just have to know how to interpret those. So, Smart Scout is no different. Looking for brands is no different. It's just knowing how to interpret all the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this isn't really a crazy mover or anything, but I think it kind of summarizes what a not so great listing looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. The price fluctuation was actually the first thing I noticed. I mean, obviously the pictures are are different. But one of the things that, and I actually had gotten this from you because I used to say, based on like price differences, I would say, hey, your product went from $20 this day to, $10 the next day or whatever. And now I will say percentages. Your product, and this is talking to the brand, your product has dropped 25% in price or fluctuated 25% in price in the last week. And that's a shock factor for brands. And that's kind of one thing I see here because it leveled out again. But it looks like in that January period, as sellers went up, then price went down.
Right. Yeah, there's a ton of sellers on this listing. And the second part of the process, right, is then to open up that listing from Smart Scout and then look at the stores that are selling it. And in terms of vetting what stores we're looking at, like we're not going to source from Best Source office supplies most likely because they're going to sell office supplies. Like we're not looking in one specific category. And a lot of times these types of industry specific companies, Amazon's just a bonus platform for them. So they have their other channels, their websites, their brick and mortar stores, distribution, and any money they make on Amazon is just extra. But for us, Amazon's 100% of our money. So we don't want to, align ourselves with a business that is selling product on Amazon just on the side because their margins could be terrible, or their products that they're selling on Amazon might not sell, right? Or they're going to be super industry specific, and they're not going to be able to, or you're going to have a hard time closing an account with them. So what we're looking for are the storefronts that happen to be on the listing that sell an assortment of products within them, similar to what our store looks like in the realm of products, right? So it's not category specific. It's more so, is it in different niches? And so far, I'm just seeing a bunch of FBM sellers, and again, we want to align ourselves with the FBA sellers because that's what we're doing. So this looks like it's mostly FBM. So I'm like, for me, is probably just a pass on this.
As far as contacting the company,
I was saying to get the storefronts on the listing. I suppose you could contact that company. I mean, the volume wasn't too great, but with the 30 sellers on there, but.
I mean, the volume wasn't great at all. But I also think on a listing like that, realistically, you're looking at share of the buy box, and in most cases, unless you are significantly priced, way over what those FBM sellers are, you're probably going to get in the buy box. So, however many sellers were on that, really realistically, always focusing on who the competitive sellers are, which in that case was not much because of the massive amount of FBM. So,
right.
Guys, if you have any comments or questions or anything on anything that we're doing or anything Amazon related in general, just feel free to drop them in here, and we will answer for you.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's look at this. The reason why it caught my eye was, I like the health and household category. It's got a semi-okay brand score, but we're gravitating towards a lower score. Number of sellers was 7. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing here. This is number of sellers. What's the brand score? Brand score is a 6. So let's see what they got going on. Is this the product? I don't even know. That doesn't even look like the product. Oh yeah, it is. But so this is like a private label product, right? So this is the type of stuff you just got to weed through.
I was gonna say that's one that I'm kind of looking at right there.
This one.
It's so Emma.
Yeah. And what's funny is that caught my eye too because of the brand name. It's kind of like niche.
Right. And so we know it's in the automotive category, obviously. No, it's in the, it's in the craft industry, which again, craft industry, pet industry, a couple different ones are usually, they want, brick and mortar brand specific or, category specific. But we also, we have one right now that we're working on closing that is specific to the crafting industry, and it's really depends. But just in general, those categories tend to be a little bit harder to get into.
Yeah, that's a good tip because sometimes people ask, are there categories we should avoid, right?
Right.
And it's not so much that you should avoid them, but just something you should be mindful of. And we have both found that crafts and pet industry are tough, because they want that, professional license or industry specificity.
Yeah, beauty can be as well,
Yep.
a little less, but I mean, the beauty industry is very competitive and tough to begin with. So, just something to keep in mind. Grocery, on the other hand, I think we both love just based on
Yeah.
the low returns. So, this looks like an interesting brand. It's got different volume, certain listings are significantly better than others. And this looks like absolute crap, which is good.
The listing, you mean?
Yeah, which is good. The product looks good. The listing looks like crap, which is a good thing if you are
It looks like it's a pretty good mover.
good mover, not a crazy amount of sellers. 2 of them are FBM, so not a ton of competition on this either. 400 plus bought in the last month.
Yeah, no, this looks pretty good. It's got a good amount of reviews. That shows like a long history of product traction. Price is kind of all over the place. Might be a value prop for them. And it's just, it's got a healthy rank. You're looking at, 15, 20,000 rank in grocery, maybe even lower, if you lower the price. It looks like, we don't have Keepa data here, but based on this, it looks like it does very well for Q4, which makes a lot of sense. Guys, there are so many products out there in the grocery and gourmet industry that do exceptional for the holiday season, right? And something like this, these candies and this type of a product is going to do very well. So that's another thing too, is like people say to avoid seasonal products, and it's like, why would you avoid seasonal products? I just say get a seasonal product for every season, and now you have a year-round business.
Because it's like if you're doing, if you're someone who does OA, you are or RA even. Everyone talks about the seasonal opportunities with OA and RA. No one talks about the seasonal opportunities with wholesale. It's the same thing. The holidays don't change. And in fact, you probably have access to more products through wholesale. It's just because you have to go through this entire process of procuring the account and doing all of that. It's a little bit different of a process, but it's still, the opportunity is huge. And especially during this time, summer slowdown, I used to think that when I was selling on eBay was a real thing, and I used to kind of play into it. And realistically, having seasonal products definitely helps with that. People do slow down a little bit in the summer, but I think more times than not, it's seller slow down. And with wholesale, I mean, as long as you can place those POs on those accounts that you already have, then you are good to go, essentially.
Yeah, this is definitely one that we would reach out to. I mean, volume's there, listings suck. It's grocery. We love the category. I mean, I would absolutely reach out to these guys. So again, we'd go on Google, we type in the name of the brand, and we would look for the contact information on their website, and we would look for the phone number. So why don't we kind of segue, into the outreach portion, which is we've identified a brand that we could potentially pitch value on. Strong sales volume, product reviews are really good, but the listing is really lacking. They have competitors here running display ads on their listing. So this is an attempt by a competitor to redirect the sales from a customer about to click buy it now. Well, then they see another competitive product. Maybe they go off the listing. And same goes here. You have no A+ content down in the description. You also have more competitors that are running display ads. How do we know that? Well, sponsored, right? Sponsored here, and that's how they're running display ads. Another thing I'll do is if I'm actually more display ads down here for other brands. Another thing that I'll do actually before I reach out to the brand, depending on the caliber of it and the pursuit, I might actually do a search on Amazon for the brand name for our candy. All right? I'll do a search on Amazon for the brand name, and I will get this, which is a competitor running a brand advertisement at the top of the page, right?
And that's the same thing that happens as well if you click on the brand and they don't have a brand store. It essentially searches the name and you get this that comes up. We do have 2 questions in here as well. So I just wanted to get to those quick.
Let's get to the questions. I just want to say one thing about this brand ad, which is, guys, if you could run brand advertising for brands, like this is a great value prop, because I want you to think about brand advertisements. The primary objective is, yes, you want to increase sales for the brand, but the primary objective with brand advertisements is to dominate the digital real estate for your branded keywords. So if I'm a customer and I'm typing in Ferrara candy and I'm a brand owner, there should be no reason that another brand is coming up at the top of the screen with this, really sexy brand ad, right? It should be us at the top of the screen. So not only is that going to increase sales, it's going to protect the equity of the brand. The way I explain brand ads to owners is they would pay for an end cap at Walmart, right? And the end cap at Walmart, it might, it's going to drive sales, but the focus of it is to display the brand, right? And really showcase that brand equity. Well, that's very similar to what happens on Amazon. We're just doing it digitally.
Exactly. So the first question we have here is actually showing up through Instagram. It's not showing up through our chat on our end, but just a pretty general question. It says one piece of information or one gem of info when it comes to closing suppliers. It's pretty generic, but I feel like if you had to give one piece of information, what would that be?
One piece of information with closing. What was that? Closing accounts.
Accounts with suppliers. I mean, I can think of, my 2-word answer.
Why don't you give one and then I'll give one?
Is follow up. That's literally it. Like we were talking about this before this live stream. It's like, what was that account you were talking about? You said you had just been generically basically reaching out to them for, I couldn't believe how long it was. Well, you said years?
2 years.
2 years before there was a response. It's amazing.
It was emails, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't even, but I kept doing it because of the product volume, right?
Right, exactly.
It's moving 5,000 to 6,000 units a month, right? So on something like that, you just got to keep following up. I mean, following up's a great tip. If you had to say one thing, if I had to say one tip for, volume, I guess, would be the other thing is you contacting brands or distributors in volume. If you're not contacting enough companies, you're not going to be closing the accounts. You're not going to be, building the business.
Peyton says on Twitter, y'all are dropping some sauce right now. Appreciate that. Try. And then we got a question from John. Says, would it be a good idea to check the gross margin before contacting the brand? You want to speak to that one?
Well, I don't know how you would know the gross margin without getting the price list first.
Well, I didn't answer because I don't know either.
So you'd have to contact the brand first in order to get that price list to then compare the profitability with Amazon. So from there, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your revenue calculator, plug in your ASIN, take off. Amazon's going to show you the referral fee, the fulfillment fee, take off your shipping charges, your monthly storage charges. Amazon revenue calculator breaks all of that down for you. And then in the COGS section, cost of goods sold, you're going to plug in what your cost is going to be on the product. So I think John might be referencing the gross margin from a fee standpoint. Before even sourcing the company, right? Before having that COGS, what is he left with? It's worth a look. And I think we do that not so much on a granular level, because I think you don't want to be wasting too much time. Buy box price, less all the fees. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. So I would say we would just look at the selling price and kind of make an assessment holistically of the listing. We're not going listing by listing and looking at the margin or the gross margin before our COGS, right? Because that would be extremely time consuming. It's very preliminary. We're going to assess the overall demand of the listing. we're going to gauge the competition. We're going to gauge how the listing looks, the health, right? Is it optimized? Is it non-optimized? And then from there, we're going to reach out to the brand. What happens next is, kind of our ability to close the account. And another note to make on that is the price is never the price, right? Like you can always negotiate price concessions, or if you get exclusivity or the sellers, reduce, you could raise the retail price, so um, that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were about to jump into the outreach. So why don't we kind of segue into that, right? Because we identified a brand that's potentially of interest. We have a non-optimized listing. We have it's moving maybe 400 or 500 units a month. I don't know, based on that average rank. Probably much more in the holiday season. It's a grocery product. We've identified that they have a terrible Amazon presence, competitors polluting their pages with ads, all kinds of nonsense going on. You get the brand owner on the phone, or maybe not the brand owner, you get somebody at the company on the phone. What happens next? Like, how do we start it?
Yeah. Well, I would always have the listing pulled up in front of me. That is, for one, you have the advantage of being able to do that while you're on the phone. And, starting by taking the path of least resistance regardless, right? Because before you jump into anything and overwhelm the brand owner and scare them away, you want to first open it up by saying, we're looking to, hey, this is so-and-so with this company. We're looking to, stock and ship your products and, take the path of least resistance, try and get a price list. And if they put up objections, which in most cases they will, then you kind of just start dropping value adds one at a time.
Exactly. You're not closing an exclusive on the first call, especially if you're just starting. That shouldn't be the goal, because if you can close an exclusive, I know you're laughing at, if you can close an exclusive on the first call, it's probably not worth it, the account. Like, it's probably not, maybe it's worth it. You're laughing because
Yeah, I feel like I have to. Yeah, I can't keep it together. I actually had it today. I had a call where I actually did close an exclusive on the first call, and before I even got a price list or anything. And so we have to play around with the pricing and everything, because it's not, as Brad said, it's like it's not making as much. It's not a crazy high caliber account. It's not going to change our lives, but it is an exclusive. It's a couple $1,000 a year, but
a year. I thought you were going to say a month.
No. It's like four grand a year maybe. So it happens. It happens. I've done that before. I'm sure you've closed some exclusives on the first call too, right?
Yeah. But hey, $4,000 a year for if you're just starting on Amazon and you have no products in your inventory, why not, right? Like,
exactly.
As you scale, the baseline just keeps going up, right? $4,000 a year becomes 40,000 a year, becomes 400,000 a year, right? Like, your baseline keeps going up for profit expectations, but when you're just starting, like,
Exactly. And I mean, you look at the average median income, in the US is like 52,000, 54,000, something like that. I mean, I don't know what percentage of that $4,000 is or whatever, but you just made up a percentage of income. You add one account after another, and realistically, I mean, you're going to get there in no time. But then we do have that question which is a good question right there, from John as well again. And it says, does it make up good or bad brand based on how many percentage of the catalog is selling well? So in other words, I think he's saying if you have a ton of SKUs in the brand, and then let's say 20 of them are good and 50 of them are bad, does that make it a bad brand?
No, I would say, as a rule of thumb, most brands, this is like, not specific to any industry, most brands will do 80% of their revenue and 20% of their SKUs.
Yeah.
So that's just the case with everybody. Like, everybody's got the hero SKU, couple SKUs that do super well. And, then the other SKUs that, hey, like, we want you to promote our other SKUs, but is there really a demand for them? So that's kind of just the common theme with brands, right? It's like, even as an Amazon business owner or as a reseller, like you might be doing 80% of your revenue and 20% of your SKUs. Like,
So the Pareto principle. So it's called.
is
that
that
right?
no idea?
Well, I think it's 80 and 80-20 Pareto.
Might be the wrong 80-20 principle. There's another 80-20.
That's the that's the 80% of consequences come from 20% of cost. Well,
Different 80-20.
Whatever, close enough.
No, so yeah, John, I would I would take it like that. Focus on just the listings that do well, and if you get an exclusive, or if you get an agreement where you're working towards an exclusive, a value add to the brand is saying, hey, your other SKUs are not doing so well, we'll help you launch one or two of them right to Amazon.
Exactly. Keep getting sidetracked there. Why don't we before we have to wrap up, why don't we go into that? Is there anything else in outreach that once you get past that point, objections, do you have anything else to add as far as that stuff goes?
Yeah, well, I would say number one, it's like you said, take the path of least resistance. You're getting a wholesale account on the first call, right? So, general structure of an opening on a call is very simple. Like it's really not that complicated. You introduce yourself, the name of your company, what you do, your location. I like to give them where we're located because it shows legitimacy. And you tell them we're interested in opening a wholesale account, or we're interested in becoming a distributor, or we're interested in stocking your products, whatever you want to say, right? And then maybe they'll ask about your business, but if they don't, I'll take the initiative and say, would you like me to tell you more about our company? And they say, sure, right? So you just got to make sure you're talking to the right person. And if you are, we start telling them more about our company, what we do. We'll just say we're an e-commerce company, right? We're not saying we want to sell your products on Amazon. We say we're an e-commerce company. And after that, we will then say, we have a website, because we do, and we do sell on Amazon as well. And then, right, this is like our famous, not famous, but like our thing, that our go-to thing, world famous, right? No, this is our go-to, which is right after we say Amazon, we immediately deflect the conversation. So we say, we do sell on Amazon. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you guys are handling the e-commerce space?
Don't even take a breath. Just
no. Don't even let them make them forget that you said the word Amazon. Right. And then from there, that's when you start to unpack and unravel, right? And peel back the layers of the onion, because then they start talking. And then that's where you start, throwing in the calibrated questions and such, and just kind of feeling that conversation out. But if their response is that, oh yeah, we sell to e-commerce businesses, there's no value pitch, right? It's just get the price list. And sometimes people forget that.
Yeah. Don't sell it if the deal's closed. And that could mean an exclusive. That could also mean, a low-level account that just will let you sell the product. There's no need to oversell.
Yeah, exactly. And if you guys have any last-minute questions, we're probably going to be wrapping up here in the next 5 minutes. If you guys have any last-minute questions or comments, throw them in the chat. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, just like the video, because it really helps out the videos and the algorithm. I would say, why don't we just give our favorite value prop? Like I have a go-to, like one or two go-to value props. That's always the case. And it comes down to, I focus on the advertising side of it, because I feel like it's a little bit more obscure. Not all brands know it. I know what yours probably is, but so what is yours with the value add?
Mine has to do with, first of all, the simple ones I'll do too as well. And the simple ones are the pictures and the listing optimization from the picture standpoint, because it's super simple and there's 9 pictures plus videos are allowed on Amazon, and most brands don't have that. As well as even if they do have it, a lot of times they don't have infographics, which is explaining in each picture what's going on, how the product works, etc. And I use that to say, hey, that's going to reduce your return rate. It's going to increase sales. It's going to boost maybe, your presence on other platforms as well, because Amazon is a big player in just the overall e-com space. And then the second one, which is my favorite thing in the world and makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, is 2D transparency, which I pitch based on if brands are having counterfeit issues, if they're having issues controlling their supply chain, where products are getting in. We recently had a brand that their product was getting, it was a water-based product, and people were diluting the product to be able to sell it cheaper to have more. And so we solved that issue. We're working right now solving that issue with 2D transparency. So it's a really, really powerful program.
Yeah. It's a great program, and I think it gets, not a lot of people know that program. So if you guys are watching, and the brand has a unauthorized reseller problem, hit them with the transparency program and say, hey, this might be a solution to your ongoing challenges, right? Brands overcomplicate it, right? Because Amazon's not their specialty. So you have to dumb things down, make them simple, and offer strategic solutions to very common problems that you hear every single day from different brands.
Right.
As far as my favorite value props that I just my go-to is usually, I feel like don't get me wrong, I love pitching listing optimization and images and all of that. That's obviously one of, if you don't have that, if the brand doesn't have that, they need to get it together. But I do feel like that value prop has gotten a little bit oversaturated, in the sense of everybody saying optimize the listing. Everybody just tosses the word optimize listing around.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you're on the phone with somebody and you could shift that conversation and start talking about their competitors are using their brand name and their brand equity to advertise their own products and capitalize on their brand equity, now you're, assuming you're talking to a brand owner or a decision maker, you're tapping into their emotions, right? Because they have a vested interest in the brand, in the equity and the health of the brand. They don't want competitors, or even worse, knockoffs advertising on their listings, and it happens all the time. So, that's probably one of my go-tos for sure.
Yeah, different solutions for different brands as well. So
exactly, all these, one issue might not be relevant to a brand.
Right.
It's case by case.
All right. Well, happy Wholesale Thursday, and I think that'll wrap it up.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other questions, drop them on the YouTube video or wherever you're watching. Follow us on the channels, and we appreciate the support, and we'll see you next time.